In this video, I'm going to tell you why the AI boom is a bubble, and more important, when that bubble is finally going to pop. Venture capitalists and governments have invested almost $1 trillion in AI tech and infrastructure, which has translated to AI companies being responsible for 92% of stock market growth in 2025. Both the biggest AI boosters and its most ardent detractors agree that the bull run will end in radical changes to the economy, politics, and maybe even human civilization.
It's the first technology that has no limit.
These systems are discovering, new cures for diseases, new kinds of energy, new ways to make spaceships.
It has the potential of civilizational destruction.
Beyond the hype from the people who have the most to gain from AI, there are 4 likely end states for how those investments will ultimately pay off. The utopian scenario, where AI fundamentally transforms the economy for the better, making humanity exponentially more productive and affluent. There's the dystopian scenario, where out-of-control AI starts pursuing its own ends and makes humanity obsolete, turning the planet into an analog in the Matrix. And then there's what I will call the integrative scenario, where AI fails to achieve superintelligence but does end up solving some productivity problems, just like any other technological innovation. And finally, there's the failure state. AI investment so radically overplays its hand that the economy built up around it collapses. Investors lose their money, data centers wind up being worthless. If you watch this video to the end, I will not only tell you which of these scenarios is most likely, but give you my completely subjective assessment of a specific date when you can time the market for maximum profits. Over the last few weeks, I've looked at the data from as many angles as I could, considered my own experiences using AI for a variety of tasks, and researched financial assessments, and it all points in the same direction. Investors are betting the entire economy on the unproven belief that the utopian scenario is real. It will succeed, and an AI-driven exponential increase in human productivity is all but inevitable. To their credit, if it does happen, the utopian scenario really would solve a lot of the world's problems. But the investment strategy that tech firms have adopted to get there most resembles every classic financial bubble in history, whereby, unless a literal miracle happens, will almost certainly burst and bring down a lot of the economy with it. This is because Wall Street, financial markets, and the entire government budget under Donald Trump have been betting the house on an unrealistic dream that is ripped right out of science fiction. And frankly, the AI dream is so absurd that it feels almost silly for me to explain it, but I feel like I have to have a go at it, so here it is. In the very near future, computers will be so efficient and intelligent that they will solve most human problems, from cancer to unleashing infinite energy with fusion to predicting financial markets, the weather, and even create better art than any human ever could.
And it will be able to improve itself.
Yes.
That's where it gets spooky, right? The idea that it can do thousands of years of innovation very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And then we'll be just ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
We will be like this ridiculous biological pitting thing trying to stop the gods.
If you believe the hype, AI will achieve a superpower that humans have only ever dreamed of: the ability to find hidden patterns in disorganized data and spit out solutions to intractable problems without ever showing their work or explaining in a checkable way how it solved those problems. That promise, taken at face value, would indeed be a miracle. You could go as far as calling it divine. Because, well, it's not so different from what the Oracle at Delphi promised to read the future. AI companies preach that by investing enough resources into AI, both vast sums of financial capital and entire nations' worth of energy consumption are worth it. Superintelligence, also called AGI or even the singularity, states that once AI is sufficiently intelligent to improve itself without human direction, its rate of improvement will continue exponentially until it is infinitely intelligent. This also means that the people who own the infrastructure that runs the AI will stand to make exponential profits along with it, because they can both use the AI to their own ends and because they made a lot of money along the way from the investments in fulfilling that AI dream. Now, I know that everything that I said sounds a little insane, but it's hardly hyperbolic enough. Listening to any AI booster out of Silicon Valley is almost as farcical as the search for the Holy Grail.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
AI is the Holy Grail.
If we could build an artificial general intelligence, that's kind of the Holy Grail of AI research.
That was a holy grail.
This is the Holy Grail of AI.
It's more beautiful than I'd ever imagined. But just like the quest for the Holy Grail, the dangers are well known for people whose motives are not pure. What is happening to me? Owning a piece of God would of course be profitable. And herein lies the main problem with the artificial intelligence boom. Everyone has been investing like superintelligence is inevitable. Tech CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman opine on the belief that the tech company that catches AGI first will win almost infinite riches, a statement that demands that they create the infrastructure to capture the upside before they realize the goal at all. But we should not lose sight of the fact that building that infrastructure just happens to be the most expensive investment that humanity has ever made. And just as important, we must remind ourselves that this is the exact opposite of how every single economic paradigm shift has ever worked over the entire course of human history. In paradigm shifts like the invention of the cotton gin or the Gutenberg press or even computers in the 1960s, started off with incremental investments that paid off with incremental profits until the economy changed completely over the course of decades and actually looking at the real money that was coming in. Meanwhile, AI investors instead are acting like they are Babe Ruth calling a home run before he even swings the bat, which is a roundabout way to talk about the astounding rise of Nvidia, the chip maker behind the AI boom. Nvidia is currently the most valuable company in the world, worth more than $4.5 trillion on today's stock market. Nvidia alone accounts for 45% of the growth of the entire NASDAQ. In full disclosure, I invested in Nvidia in 2023 and have made about 300% gains. Just like with my own personal portfolio, that one equity is the only reason that my stocks are in the positive in an otherwise unimpressive run for the American economy. However, if you look at what is actually feeding Nvidia's dramatic rise, the impossible profits look a lot more precarious than they should. Just like in the American gold rush, the people who actually made the money were the people who supplied the gold mining tools, not the actual people who mined the gold. And Nvidia, well, they are the company store. Now, this chart, put out by Bloomberg, reveals serious bubble mechanics for how Nvidia boosts its share price by selling chips to itself. See those arrows going in and out of the giant Nvidia bubble? Well, that is the flow of money in and out of the company. And you will notice that it's moving in a circle. To explain what this means, I'm going to quote a recent piece by Cory Doctorow. It's normal for Nvidia to invest tens of billions in a data center company, which then spends that investment buying Nvidia chips. It's the same chunk of money that is basically being energetically passed back and forth between these closely related companies, all of which claim it as an investment, as an asset, or as revenue, or all three. The game appears to be that Nvidia invests in these companies who are buying its chips in order to increase the overall number of chip sales, which in turn increases the value of Nvidia's share price. Now, do you see a problem here? Instead of Nvidia making money by selling chips to companies who need its chips to fuel the revenues that AI is already bringing in, Nvidia profits are coming from the hype that Nvidia is itself creating. So now that I think about it, it's not like the gold rush at all. This would be like those gold rush companies selling those mining pans to themselves. And for some reason, everyone would be like, hey, that company has got a great business plan. This circular investing only makes sense If AI's eventual overall profitability is so vast that these investments are really just like short-term bridges to get to the point where the economy can capture all that profit that's just waiting in the wings. To quote Dr. O again, the journal quotes David Kahn, a VC from Sequoia, who says that for AI companies to become profitable, they would have to sell us $800 billion worth of services over the life of today's data centers and GPUs. Not only is that a very large number, it's also a very short time. AI bosses themselves will tell you that these data centers and GPUs will be obsolete practically from the moment they start operating. Mark Zuckerberg says he's prepared to waste a couple $100 billion on misspent AI investments. And here's Zuckerberg saying exactly that with a little more context.
And if we end up misspending a couple of $100 billion, I think that is going to be very unfortunate, obviously. But what I'd say is I actually think the risk is higher on the other side. If you build too slowly, and then superintelligence is possible in 3 years, but you built it out assuming it would be there in 5 years, then you're just out of position on what I think is going to be the most important technology that enables the most new products and innovation and value creation in history.
The lifespan of an AI chip is only about 3 years, which means that the $1 trillion investment in AI needs to earn out before those chips lose their value altogether. This is unprecedented. It's unlike literally any investment ever made before in infrastructure. When you build a bridge or a factory or a new highway or build a bank building, you usually plan for that asset to continue to produce value for decades after it's been completed. But the incredibly short time horizon on AI chips means that the investment needs to pay off almost immediately. So all we need to do to estimate whether or not AI will actually pay off is to do some simple calculations on how much AI is making right now. The largest and most profitable player in the AI services space is OpenAI, which this year posted an annualized revenue of $13 billion. Now, annualized revenue, by their definition, is that they report the first 6 months of their revenue in that year and then just simply double it to figure out what they would make over the course of that year. Now, doubling, now this is really interesting. Doubling in this case is a sign that they're actually predicting flat revenue over the course of that year, not an exponential increase in profits. It's not like they said in the first 6 months they made $7 billion and the next 6 months they made $21 billion. No, they just doubled it. So this money comes primarily through people and companies paying for various premium services to their marquee product, which is ChatGPT, which I'm assuming you have probably used for free at some point in the last few years. Now, Bain & Company estimates that AI needs to generate at least $2 trillion in revenue, and that revenue, not investment, by 2030 for the enormous investment in AI data centers to stay in the black. Now, the only way to reach those numbers is to start hitting an exponential growth curve almost immediately. And while $13 billion is a sizable chunk of money on its own, ask yourself if your own usage of ChatGPT or any other AI product is likely to amplify your own productivity 1,530% over the next 3 to 5 years. Because that is the scale of acceleration that we need to hit for the AI boom to pan out. The only way that that is possible is if AI really does break the superintelligence barrier and achieve the almost divine result that its investors swear is right around the corner. But an alternative explanation for what is really going on with AI is a lot more cynical and, frankly, realistic. What if the dream of AI superintelligence and infinite profitability was, and always has been, a dream? A sales pitch designed by tech entrepreneurs in order to attract investment in what amounts to the largest Ponzi scheme in all of history. If that was the case, then the people profiting most off the AI boom are the people who owned the stocks when they were at their lowest, the original tech founders behind those very first tech companies. Now, in January 2018, when AI was just starting its bull run, Nvidia shares sold for just $5. Today's stock price is closer to $180, and that is a 36-fold increase. Anyone selling the dream back then, or any time along that meteoric rise, benefited from the generalized belief that AI would eventually reach stratospheric levels of valuation. In other words, they profited off of a future before that future ever actually existed. In encouraging investment into data centers and chip infrastructure, they effectively cashed in on the imagined value of that future through simple speculation, and they didn't need AI to achieve superintelligence to make their billions. To early investors, it doesn't matter if AI becomes profitable at all, ever, because they have already had the opportunity to realize their profits. And let's go back to Cory Doctorow again. The AI bubble is driven by monopolists who've conquered their own markets and have no more growth potential, who are desperate to convince investors that they can continue to grow by moving into some other sector, either pivot to video or crypto blockchain or NFTs, AI, and now super intelligence. Further, the top-line growth that AI companies are selling comes from replacing most workers with AI, retasking the surviving workers as AI babysitters, i.e. the humans in the loop, which won't work. Finally, AI cannot do your job, but an AI salesman can 100% convince your boss to fire you and replace you with an AI that can't do your job. And then when the bubble bursts, the money hemorrhaging foundation models will be shut off, and we will all lose the AI that can't do your job. And you will be long gone, retrained or retired or discouraged, and out of the labor market. And no one will do your job. AI is the asbestos we are shoveling into the walls of our society, and our descendants will be digging it out for generations. All right, now the only part that I quibble with Doctorow here on is that AI, in my experience at least, has created some things of actual value. I use AI frequently for two things: creating transcriptions of audio, which greatly speeds up how I produce videos, and occasionally to generate images that I use in video thumbnails. Now, these things do add to my overall productivity. But when I've tried to do more advanced things like asking ChatGPT to help write scripts, I found that the output is so ridden with hallucinations and errors that it actually takes me more time to use AI assistance than no AI at all. Which leads me back to those four scenarios that I outlined earlier. The utopian, the dystopian, the integrative, and the failure scenarios, which I see as the most likely outcomes. Now, with only a few years to reach the utopian vision, I think it's pretty clear that we will not achieve superintelligence in the timelines that tech companies have to work with. It's not to say that superintelligence isn't possible. It might be, but you can't do it in just 3 years. This also neatly rules out the dystopian scenario of superintelligence destroying all of humanity, because if we don't reach superintelligence, then that can't happen. Which leads us to the last two likely outputs: that AI will become useful for a few types of specific tasks and never meet exponential growth, and the failure state where AI is truly useless, provides no boost to society at all, and the overinvestment collapses everything. That's where Cory Doctorow is. Now, recently, Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, tipped his hand at which of these four outcomes he thinks is most likely. In October, he announced on Twitter that the newest version of OpenAI would, quote, treat adults like adults, which would open the door to the chatbot producing customized erotica for users. Now, the internet savant Joan Westenberg astutely pointed out in response that, quote, if I genuinely believe that I was 18 months away from superintelligence that could solve cancer, I would probably not be pivoting to horny chatbots. But that's just me, a person with priorities. Which is to say that while Altman still pitches AI as the ultimate human job replacement machine, he is also quietly settling for a much more profane use of his software. This is another sign that the dream of AI is cracking apart. So now that I've explained the state of the AI marketplace and economics, you probably want to know how much road the AI boom really has left in it. Because just because AI is doomed doesn't mean that there won't still be money to be made off of the boosters. As I mentioned earlier, I invested in Nvidia in 2023, and I have made a handsome profit off of it in the last few years. Am I ready to pull out the rug and make off with some cash, or do I think there's still more room to grow? After all, if I decided to pull out my cash from the market a year ago, I would have missed out on almost doubling my money. So the question that you and me and every other investor really wants to know is how we can time the bubble to get out before all the air leaves the room. I guess that's not a great metaphor, before the bubble pops. In other words, if profits are based on belief, how long does it take for that belief to collapse? And to this, I think there are enough breadcrumb clues to make a rough prediction on the fate of this market. So here goes. Since investors are still hopeful in the possibility of a utopian solution, we should assume that it's still technically possible to achieve it. Then if AGI is around the corner, then perhaps the mega super happy ending that AI companies have been promising wasn't a dream after all. But if it is going to happen, it will have to occur before the value of the current investment spree goes to zero, which is roughly 3 years from today. So that means there has to be signs of exponential revenue already happening in a very, very short time frame. Now, if I were a betting man, which I guess I am, I would say that the writing on the AI optimist wall would have to be completely clear before we've covered half of that runway, or roughly 18 months from today. So I'm going to set the arbitrary date just a few weeks earlier than that to April 1st, 2027. Now, if it's not apparent by then that AI really is the future, then there's a good chance that it was an April Fool's joke all along. Which is a reminder to myself to set a calendar notification right now to assess how things will look on that date, where I will either pull out my investment from AI right then, or likely ride the AI collapse all the way to the bottom like everyone else. Feel free to leave a comment down below with your own prediction, or in a year and a half when we know for sure whether I was right or wrong. And that is all I have to say about the future of AI, at least for now. Thank you so much for watching this analysis. If you want to support the sort of independent journalism that I do here on this channel, I would love you to subscribe to my free Substack newsletter. It's at sgcarney.substack.com. But if you upgrade to a premium member, cue your heavenly music there, you're going to get early access to the work that I do before it comes out on YouTube, usually like 3 or 4 days before it goes on YouTube. And more importantly, that warm and fuzzy feeling that comes with knowing that you are a small part of how this sort of journalism stays online. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates Artificial Intelligence. Thank you so much for all of my supporters on Patreon and on Substack who make this work possible. The contributions you give keep this sort of independent journalism on the air, and I really just could not do it without you. If you want to get early access to my work and get your name on the honor roll right over there, please sign up at the links down below. From PokeyBear LLC in Denver, Colorado, this was Scott Carney Investigates.